Hi everybody, this is Kim Shivler. Welcome! In today's lesson, we're going to do a manual installation of WordPress. It's sometimes called the 5-minute install. However, it's going to take us a little bit longer than that, and you'll see why. This is not the basic auto installer that I have shown in my very beginner classes. It's a little bit more advanced. Yet, it's a better installation because it's the true WordPress installation. Nothing's been added to it. Nothing's been taken away from it. And while it takes just a little longer, it's really important to know how to do it. And once you do it a few times, it's actually very simple. This is particularly true if you're building a bigger platform, like an online learning platform, a membership site. And if you're going to use BuddyPress, it's absolutely critical. BuddyPress will break when you use the other installers very, very often. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I need to do is go into my cPanel, and we're going to create a database. This is the database that WordPress is going to use. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm using the MySQL database wizard. So it's going to allow me here to create a new database. Now, I'm going to hide some of this just for security purposes, and I'm actually going to, of course, delete this account when we're done. But for now, just so you can see, I have the database name. I have some pretext. This is going to be set up by your web host. And that and the underscore are part of the database name. And then I'm going to just name it Solo 124. All you can do are letters and numbers for this. You can't use special characters. See, if I try, I'm going to get a warning. And then I'm going to click on Next Step. The system successfully added the database. So this whole thing is the database name. I recommend that you copy it and paste it into a text file. And I'm going to do that in just a minute. Here we go. I've grabbed my text file. New document. Now I need to create a database user. I'm going to name it Solo K12, cannot contain more than 7 characters. And then a lot of times here, I will go ahead and use the password generator. The reason for that is we want to make sure it's a strong password. And this is not a password we're going to be entering. It's going to be coded into our WordPress files so that WordPress can access the database. The one thing this doesn't have that I would like to have in there is a number. So I'm just going to jump in here, put in a number or two. I'm now going to highlight that and copy it. I have to confirm that I've copied it and click on Use Password. It's very strong. Everybody's happy. I'm going to go back over to my text and type that in, or paste that in, I should say. I'm now going to create that user. Once you've created the user, we need to give the user full privileges because WordPress has to be able to write and read from and edit these databases. For example, when you add a post, you are going to be adding information in the database. When you upload images, same things are going to be happening. This information is going to be written to the database so it knows where to pull from. So we're going to click on All Privileges and click on Next Step. This user now has all the privileges on the database. So from here, I've got to copy my username. So I have my database name, my username, and my password. This is what we're going to put into our WordPress configuration files so WordPress can access and use our database. That's all for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're actually going to go download the WordPress files, edit them, and get them uploaded to our web host. I'm Kim Shivler. I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, it's Kim Shivler. Welcome. In this lesson, we're actually going to download the WordPress installation files and get them ready so that we can go through with the full installation. I'm over here at WordPress.org. This is where I'm going to download their install file from. If you've ever heard anyone say they're hosted on WordPress.org, they're not. They're self-hosted, which means they're paying a host like SiteGround or Bluehost, and they're then installing the files on that host. This, WordPress.org, is where all those files are kept. The free plugins, the free themes, and the WordPress core software. We're going to come and download that. So we're just going to click here on Download WordPress. And we're going to download the zip version. If we were using Unix, we might want to download the tar.gz, but we're not going to do that. And it has now downloaded that to my downloads directory. Now, just for our purposes, I have already taken a copy of that and put it over into my file manager for our next step. This is the zip file that was downloaded. I've put it into a directory called Manually Installing WordPress. To unzip this, I'm just going to double click on it, and it expands it. And I now have a directory called WordPress. Now I'm going to need to use FTP, File Transfer Protocol, or SFTP, Secure File Transfer Protocol, in order to move this over to my web host. But first we have to edit a file. I'm going to double click on this, which opens it up. These are all of the WordPress files, all the underlying files that run your WordPress installation. I'm looking here for WP config. Now I need to edit this PHP file. It's very, very important to use a text editor, not a word processor. I'm just going to Command and click on Open With. I'm using a Mac. And I could use TextEdit, or I happen to like Text Wrangler, so I'm going to use that. If you're using Windows, use Notepad. Or if you happen to use Notepad Plus or something, that's fine. Now I'm going to make 3 changes here: the database name, the username, and the password. And if you'll remember, I had saved these to a text file. So I'm just going to highlight this first one, and I'm going to put it here between the tick marks. Make sure you do not delete those tick marks. It's very simple to edit this file, but it's very important to do it properly, otherwise you could break everything. And that is part of why I consider this a more intermediate or power user type of topic, in that you are having to edit underlying PHP files, which means things can go horribly wrong. Now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to do a file save as. wp-config.php. That's our actual configuration file. I can now close this. In fact, I'm going to close the document and then go ahead and quit Text Wrangler. Now at this point, and again, just for time, I have already logged into FileZilla. If you're not sure how to use FTP, I will have a link for an article I wrote on how to use FTP. And it's very, very important. If you're going to use FileZilla in particular, or any of these free ones, only download it from their official site. A lot of this open source, people actually put malware into them. They download it because it's for free and anyone can distribute it, and they'll put malware or even just irritating downloads, even if they're not technically a virus. So we always want to just go to the FileZilla actual site if we're going to use this one. There's lots of FTPs out there. Use whatever works for you. Now, I have already set it up to where I'm in that solo success directory. When I create a subdomain, it creates a directory of that name. And when you create just a directory and you haven't installed anything, this is all you've got there. Now, what I did here was I synced it. So if when we first looked here, it just had the WordPress 4.8, that's because I had logged in ahead of time. I needed to sync so that I can see the new files. Now, what we're going to do is copy the files in this directory. Don't copy the whole directory. We're going to open it up. We're going to select everything in there. I do that by clicking on the top, holding down the Shift key, scrolling down, clicking the bottom one. That selects everything in between. And now I hold down my mouse key, my left mouse key, and I drag them across. This part takes the longest time. I now have to wait and wait and wait until these files have been copied over. At that point, we run through our install, and it really is a 5-minute installation. I'm not going to have you sit and watch me do this. We'll come back in just a few minutes and complete this part of the process. Hey everybody, it's Kim Shivler. Welcome back. We are right in the middle of manually installing WordPress. This is different than just using that quick little script setup, maybe Softaculous or Fantastico Deluxe, that our web hosts give us. We're actually manually installing it. This is highly recommended to do, particularly if you're going to have a membership site or a learning platform. And if you're going to have BuddyPress, it's just critical. What we've already done is downloaded the WordPress software from WordPress.org. We've expanded it. We've unzipped the zip file. We created a database. We put the database information in our WordPress config, and then we moved it, or copied it, I should say, over here to our actual directory on our web host. Now that we paused because that took about 10 minutes and I didn't want to sit here and just watch it go. I like to go do other things when that's happening. Now what I do to actually do the installation, to configure the installation, is I go back to my browser and I'm going to type in my subdomain that we created this for. So we actually had created a subdomain, and if it was a main domain, we would enter that. We click enter, and it immediately starts the installation. Well, we just have a Pebble sighting. As I said, it immediately starts the installation. This is going to start where I select my language. So we're using English. Going to click on continue. This is the information we need. What's our site title? What's our username? And then what's the password? For our purposes, I'm just going to copy the default strong password that's generated because obviously I will have to come in and change that since I'm doing this for all to see. Our email is going to be the email for the administrator. This is important. This is where you will get information if someone is trying to log into the account, if things are updated, etc., or if you've forgotten a password. And then we're going to discourage the search engines. This is important because we're just building the site. We're not ready to ask the search engines to come in yet. I now click on Install WordPress. Thank you and enjoy. It has been installed. I can log in. And now I have a WordPress website to start working on. That's all there is to it. This is Kim Shivler. If you have any questions or concerns, issues as you try your install, make sure you add them in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.